This video is about the concepts of hierarchy and rulers, all generally framed in a discussion centering around anarchist discussion, basically. So basically, so-called, a lot of them anyway, I don't see necessarily how you could call yourself this. I'm trying to be pretty fair to both sides here. Or I guess the so-called anarcho-communists, but I don't see how you can consider yourself an anarcho-communist if you understand what I'm about to go through right here. So basically, they say anarchy, for the most part, they believe that anarchy means no hierarchy or without hierarchy. And it doesn't. It means without ruler. The root of the etymology of the word, the basis of the word is anarchos, which is Greek and means without ruler. And means without, obviously, and archos means ruler, or archon means ruler. So anarchos means without ruler. And a ruler is not the same thing as a hierarchy. A hierarchy is just a system of rank. And even within social relationships, a hierarchy is not a ruler. A ruler is someone who forces themselves on you against your consent. And within certain social contexts, that is legitimate if you're the one violating their rights. Like if you're the one violating their rights, then it's obviously legitimate for them to force their will on you to stop you from attacking them, as long as you're not the initial aggressor and he's stopping you, right? I mean, that might be a little jumbled up and seem confusing, but what I'm saying is that hierarchy is not necessarily a ruler. It's not the same thing by definition. A ruler could kind of be said to be a hierarchy that you are forced into and forced to remain a part of. That could that sort of makes sense based on what these are. It's in abstract concept, it's a ruler is a person who thinks he's above you, obviously in some sort of system of rank, which the one that anarchists are mostly concerned about, I would say, is the one that creates a ruler. So obviously he thinks that he has the right to rule you, so he forces his will on you when in the context of you not being the one who's hurting others. So he's not stopping you from hurting others, he's just forcing his will, and he's initiating force or threatening or coercing you. So a hierarchy means system of rank. That's all it really means. It's, we have hierarchies in our minds at all times regarding so many things, regarding everything. We all judge, we perceive and we judge based upon our tastes as we develop, and we rank things in our head, not so in such a concrete way, but we have ideas in our mind of what we like more than other things, and so on and so forth. So, and who we think is more competent at certain things too. So it's just kind of part of your perspective, regardless. Like, you're not going to look at someone who has no engineering skills and view him as at the same level, because he's not at the same level as someone who has engineering skills. I'm pretty sure I said that right. You're not going to look at somebody who has engineering skills and put him on the same level of engineering as someone who doesn't. And they say that they understand that, but I mean, that's a hierarchy. So, and this arises naturally in organization due to that fact that some people are better at some things than others. You're not going to go join a group and even democracy itself, if it's majority rule, you're going to have majority rule. That's still a system of hierarchy. The majority is just who makes the rules at that point of the policy, which could be fine in a voluntary context, as long as you are not forcing them to join or stay in that group. Then that would be your ruler. But before then, it's not. It's a hierarchy for sure, but it's not a ruler. And that's a big and very important distinction, because I think that that's a lot of their basis for their arguments against economic equality of outcome is based on that misunderstanding of the difference between a ruler and a hierarchy. And so I'm watching a video, and what spawned this was I'm watching a video, why anarcho-capitalists aren't anarchists, which I'm sure there's a million of those out there, but this one is by Thought Slime. And at the beginning of the video, he says, anarchism is a set of ideas that are opposed to unjustified hierarchy. And as that's worded, yeah, absolutely 100%, that makes perfect sense. But then later, he basically says, I wonder if this will play, if I could find it and you can hear it, but he says, he's like, that's an economic hierarchy. hierarchies have rulers. And so the economic part really doesn't matter. What matters here is that he's saying hierarchies have rulers. So he's basically saying, even though he has already cited that hierarchy and rule are not the same thing by his language earlier, by citing unjustified hierarchies, he's now basically saying that hierarchy and rulers are essentially synonymous. They might be at, one concept leads to the other, he might be saying, but no, it's not the same thing, because now he's conflating the two things, a hierarchy and ruler. He's implying that a hierarchy necessarily leads to or is a ruler, even though which renders his words earlier like silly, because then unjustified hierarchy is redundant. You don't need to cite unjustified hierarchy, which is the part that actually makes sense, if you are now going to conflate and say and imply that all hierarchies are illegitimate rulers and inconsistent with anarchism. They're not. Hierarchy is not necessarily inconsistent with anarchism. It's not at all. It's only inconsistent when it is a ruler, when you are forced into a hierarchy. And this is where the whole argument becomes with wages and work and employment, because you're not forced to do it. Now, there are arguments that could be made regarding how property works and how the state enforces bogus property claims, and that limits people's opportunity illegitimately to quote, force them to go work for someone else, which there's validity to that argument. But in the abstract, as the concepts are, no, a hierarchy is not a ruler, is not a legitimate hierarchy to offer employment. Like, it's just like, in most basic terms, say it's illegitimate for you to pay someone to do something for you and not give him everything that he generates, which is basically what they believe, which is just that why would you even do that then, unless you absolutely have to, because you can't. But the market and the way that money and value works handles that anyway, because if you need it done, you're going to pay more. Depending on how much you view it as an inconvenience to do something, you're going to pay someone that much more to get it done for you, because either you can or you don't. So anyway, I mean, like I'm just saying, and I think that, like I said, this misunderstanding of what hierarchy and rulers are is a lot to do with how they view certain elements of economics as being illegitimate when they're really not. It is not. Hierarchy itself is not inconsistent with anarchism. It makes no sense to say so either, because now, like, think of it in the context of how trade unions work and everything. Like, you have apprentice, you have journeyman, you have a system of rank and a tier of knowledge that people climb up. Hopefully, that's their goal. But you're not going to let the town drunk build the bridge. You're not going to let that happen. The organization naturally results in a hierarchy forming, and that's not necessarily illegitimate. It's really insane to say so. So I guess I'll just end that there at 8 minutes. Hierarchy, ruler, differences. Hierarchy, system of rank. Ruler is a person who is forcing his will on you. He's ruling you against your consent. He's forcing himself on you. So a hierarchy is not the same thing as that. If somebody's ruling you, it can be said that it's a hierarchy that's involuntary. Sure, if you want to view it that way, I would say it's not actually a legitimate hierarchy, though, because it's a bogus claim. Like, he doesn't have the right to rule you. No one has the right to rule anyone. But yeah, that's the end of that one.